Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the No Cap Zone podcast, powered by educational entities. I'm your host, Joel Manning, at the No Cap Zone, and I'm the student of Students for Equity. And welcome back to season three. I'm currently a junior in high school, and I am excited for you all to listen and be interactive while we delve into some important activities. Before we dive in, if you're tuning in on Facebook or any other social media platforms, please spread the word, share this episode in community groups, and discuss. And also make sure that you tag 5 people in who you think will be valuable within our discussion. So now let's get inside the activity not the activity. Let's get inside the topic that we have in hand today. Alright, so and by real quick. Alright. So before we get inside, today's topic or today's episode is about social media, mental health, and bullying on social media. Um, The reason why that this is a valuable discussion is because nowadays, with the younger generation like Gen Z and below, are more susceptible to being influenced by social media and what people think and what people say. So, a couple questions that we have in store for you today is going to be, um, how do you think, or basically one of the questions is, how do you think social media platforms contributed to or impact mental health among teenagers now today? The reason why I would ask you all this is because now people are more, they worry about what people think and worry about influences and things of that nature within today's generation. Um, Also, you have people that are boxing. Boxing is a form of public or publicly addressing people's names, addresses, the whole gist or the whole nine. Um, so that would be another form of being bullied because you can have people showing to your doorstep, which is a dangerous part of social media or the internet. Um, Also, it can be ups or downs. Some parts of social media can um, boost your confidence, and some may not. I see some in the or someone in the chat asking, what are some social media platforms youth are using? So, social media platforms that the youth are using nowadays would be Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter. Some may use Facebook. That's more for family connect or to connect with family or business wise. But the main ones will be Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, but also Discord. So these are major things that you'll see the youth using nowadays because we're able to connect, but also we're just able to interact with different things that we may have interest in or just for fun. Um, and matter of fact, when it comes to like when it comes to platforms that are such as Insta or Twitter, those are also able to be negative platforms because one, you have people that are in negative communities that will cause issues, whether it's in your personal, school, or business life. So those are some major signs that you or the youth as you try and look at. Um, the youth are able to be feeling safe online. It just depends on how they connect and how they talk. Because the way that you condone yourself on the internet also implies that you will it condones whether you're going to feel safe or not nowadays because people are easily influenced by others. They care about what people say, they care about how they dress, how they look, just about their whole personality, whether it's physical or not. Um, Also, there's another question: steps that are, or what steps can parents or just adults use in providing and building a better, positive, supportive online community that will prioritize the mental health well-being. Um, and this is just from experience I've seen with others when it comes to Parents actually getting involved within their child's life, whether on social media or primarily their internet life. It will also create a good barrier that you will have with your child because you're able to show uh, the ups and downs. You're able to explain what's going on if you develop a good relationship with your child. If not, then that may go downhill. Um, children, when it comes to people seeing children talk on or seeing children getting talked about adults online, they may feel like they're being attacked or they're just being or belittled on because of course you want people to talk higher up or higher of you instead of belittling you or any other form. But nowadays people would associate with being belittled or being talked about negatively. Um, so that is an aspect of social media. So back to the original question at hand: how are adults able to prioritize being inside their child's life or the internet life? Just the boundaries. You're able to um, monitor what they say, what they look at, what they're able to access, because those are major practices that you're able to implement within your child's life beforehand, so nothing bad can happen later on within their life. Um, a question in the chat that I see it says, "Do you feel like Black children are being bullied more on social media?" Yes and no, because nowadays people are either hyper emotional or they're more relaxed where no one can get really to them. But so you have to separate those two groups from the people who are hyper emotional. The people who are hyper emotional, they will be they will allow people to um, get to them with the words that they say or the things that they show them because they feel like everything's going to be personal attacks, constantly attacking. That is something you should look at if that person's hyper emotional, because it can always lead in a negative aspect, which is also another part of this topic, which is mental health. It can diminish their mental health because either it can lead to depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, just a whole nine that you see now within the current generation. Um, so that is one thing that you have to look at within Black children because, and also the other group that people don't allow people's words to affect them. They're more built up, and their parents actually try to develop a relationship with their child that will help them, or it's just a natural difference they have. So that is a big difference whenever you are looking at if Black children are being bullied nowadays. Um, and yes, suicide is a concerning thing because cyberbullying is another aspect because they're able to say certain things get to you. They're pretty creative with what they say because if it's going to lead up to suicide, it has to lead, or it has been going on for an expanded amount of time, which should not be healthy. Um, so nowadays, social media is going to be connected to suicide just based off those things. Um, another topic is how can social media be effective, utilize awareness about mental health? Mental health issues that are, hold up. How can social media be effectively utilized to aware about mental health issues and reduce the stigma associated with seeking help? Nowadays, you'll see people actually be more reserved instead of asking, communicating, because communication is a major thing that people do not have when it comes to their own mental well-being. Um, because of course, you see nowadays with the numbers you have in more children accepted in mental hospitals skyrocket. You have more children that have anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. Those major things have been skyrocketing over time because no one's been communicating. So the way is, besides, because we already have a month um, around mental health, but people should actively try and communicate, build up, have workshops for the younger generation, like Gen Z and below, have workshops for us because you don't know what that person can go through at home and what can lead up to that final thought or final action. Um, And of course, balancing their emotions. Of course, when you get to puberty, emotions are going to be either aligned or out of whack, most likely out of whack. So it's going to be easier for people to get to that person's mindset, whether it's going to be them actually taking their own lives or just any mental problems that they have, whether it's behavioral or it's going to be psychologically. So one thing that you can do is implement a village. When I say implement a village, I mean by implement a group of people that individual is able to go to, talk to, if it's necessary for them to feel like they need to be heard, they need to be seen, any form of things, so they're able to express instead of holding that emotion or holding up that grudge or burden up for that person to lead up to any negative solution, and not even a solution, any negative action. Um, so that's a major thing. Make sure that you're connected. Make sure that you have a good relation. Make sure you're strong with that person. Um, and yes, people that are in school, they should have a school counselor that should be trusted. If that school counselor is not trusted, then that's not they're doing their job effectively, and they have a bad reputation with students. Um, per grade level, that is a major thing because if you have a counselor each grade level, you're able to go to that specific person and sit down and talk like, hey, this is bothering me, and they can always connect with their parent, whether it's actually major or if it's major, then they should contact the parent. If it's not major, it will be resolved within that current moment. Then they can just go to that person, have one-on-one, and just leave. And overall, have follow-up so we make sure those steps can be properly executed. Um, so another question I see in the chat is, what are the top challenges students face regarding bullying? Um, Major thing that you can see is people when a student or a person that's getting bullied, you can see that their posture is able to be changed. So when I say posture, I mean by their body posture. You can see it within their face. You can see it with the way they walk, the way they carry themselves. Also, you can notice it within the way they speak. Because of course you can see like the nervous type of energy connected with inside that child whenever they're getting bullied. Because of course people are more expressive with what they feel like. So that is a major thing. That is one of the top challenges. Of course, when you're getting bullied, most people they'll just say like, oh, especially if it's like where like, oh, they like you or whatnot. No, people have their own insecurities and they feel like it's getting worse. So most likely project that on another person, and you can even see that within the schools now. Um, so that should be like a major thing that you should really notice when it comes to that. Another question I have for you all is, as teenagers navigate both online and offline work, what strategies do you think are essential for maintaining a healthy balance between social media use and mental well-being? So when we're talking about that finding a balance, that basically shows um, having a clear-cut time on when should that person like cut off from them being online, when that person should be online, because the longer you're on online something, the more that you're drained and the more that you're able to um, be able to be drained, but also the more that you're able to be affected by others' actions and what and their words. So that is a major thing that you should watch out. Um, Another question in the chat is, what can adults do to better help their children regarding mental health? Always build up a connection. Always have a village behind them, but also make sure that you sit down, lay out the ground rules, but also make sure that they have the time to speak on whether if they're being overwhelmed or being overwhelmed, shut down, or technically the same thing. If they're overwhelmed, if they're anxious, if they're depressed, if they're feeling suicidal, just make sure that you're following up with their current emotions, how they're feeling, their actions. Because if you don't notice that, because of course nowadays you see parents like, oh, you're not depressed, you're just this, and go over there, or never mind, I don't want to deal with you. Go take this and go sit down and do something else. That's just showing that it is a improper way of building a communication system with your child, but also that healthy relationship that they desire and what they need. Um, School policies, they're both helpful and harmful. Because when it comes to the harmful aspect, one teacher may know what's going on. They can silently pick on that person, or they'll publicly announce it, or they'll just assign more and more, adding on to that burden of what they do not need. So that is a major thing that you should see, like, because I know like certain schools they'll apply a bunch of work, just a bunch of work onto people that people will just say, "Oh, here, have this. I know you got a bunch on your plate. Complete this and bring it back within X amount of time." And it's not even a good time window. It can be like a small, like just for that entire day. And the next day you have to turn all the things. Um, but also you have the help aspect, which is basically you develop a good and healthy relationship with one of your teachers, whether it's a social worker, the teacher, someone in admin, your counselor, someone inside of the building that's an adult. Make sure that you have a healthy relationship that you're able to, so the school policy work, so you're able to just be more confident to just release whatever you need. So that's a major thing. I see in our chat there's a question. What do you think? So the question I see is, what do you think you or your peers need from their parents, from teachers, from school admin, from society? One thing that I do see is that the more or over time things will get built up, and I even seen this in like my own school. They'll focus on one group and just forget about the rest. If you're running inside a school, you need to make sure everybody is equal, because that can always affect how your relationship is, but also if something major is happening, depends on if they want to talk to you. Because, of course, mental health nowadays have skyrocketed. You see more behavioral, you see more psychological problems when it comes to your mental. So that's one thing you need to look at. Another thing is parents, and I've said this a bunch of times already. Build a good relationship with your child, so they're able to feel comfortable with coming to you about any situation. If it's not you, then you can have someone in your family that is that has a strong connection with that person, that's more comfortable for someone to talk to. Teachers, sometimes you need to get. And this is just a general thing. Teachers sometimes need to give grace to their students, because nobody knows what's really going on in your background, because you can be silent and you can be happy, and as soon as you go back home or wherever you're at, that situation can take effect, because people can't have masks. Admin, they need to pay attention. So first off, they actually do need to pay attention to how people are acting, because if you do not understand how your student or the student population is acting, then how you know what's the necessary needs that you need to meet for that specific person or group. Um, in a society, that's one thing I can see is stop applying a bunch of pressure, because remember, you still have children that are growing up. The more you put on the internet for people to see, or for children to see, the more or the faster that someone can grow up, or the faster that someone's mental can diminish. Um, Another question in the chat that I see is, how can parents pressure kids negatively? So, of course, you have the basic standards, which is abuse, but that's psychological, verbal, mental. Um, Basically, those main natures of abuse. That's one way, but also you're belittling your child. When you're belittling, you're basically saying you should have got this, you should have got this grade, you should have got this on your exam, you should have did this, you should have did that. That can just build up that child's stress, because now they have an expectation that they need to meet, which they can never meet within the long run if they're way too stressed out. Um, Another question is in the chat that I see is, how do the labels we place on kids impact their mental health? When you're talking about the label, um, when you're talking about labels, you're basically seeing nowadays you'll see people randomly like, oh, you're a narc, oh, you're you have ADHD, oh, you have autism. just random things. The more you place label on, the more that person will shape into that role, and that can affect that person's overall well-being, morals, and goals. As soon as that child or the ideal is morphed into something that it was never into originally, then what's the whole point of them even having their own upcoming just for you to place labels on them to them morphing? But that's all we have for today. Real quick, Students for Equity has established this platform for students to amplify their voices on social justice issues occurring every day, both within the outside and inside schools. If you're interested in backing up our advocacy, please email us at Students for Equity. When we're saying for, we don't mean FR, we mean the letter for. Students for Equity in schools at gmail.com. Our No Cap Zone podcast is proudly powered by educational entities. Please visit educationalentities.com to engage with us as we aim to amplify more youth voices in advocacy spaces. I'm your host, Sean Manning, and I hope you all had a good day and a good time within the podcast. See ya.